So on 911, that's September 11th, 2001, I was working at a clinic in Bennington, and it was around 10 a.m. and I was between appointments, and I went to the uh, billing office for something, and the biller was talking to a FedEx driver, and the FedEx driver said, "Have you heard? Uh, a plane or planes have crashed into the World Trade Center in New York City." Now, information moved a lot slower in those days. That was 22 years ago. Uh, Information did not move as quickly, even in 2001, as it does today. So the FedEx driver said that, and the lady in the billing office turned her radio on, and I heard the radio broadcast, and it felt like something out of a movie, something out of some apocalyptic action movie. I remember the radio announcer saying, "The twin towers of the World Trade Center have been hit by jumbo jets. The Pentagon is burning, and the White House has been evacuated." And I could just feel myself turning white, could feel myself turning gray, the blood draining from my face. And I just thought, my gosh, what is happening? What is going on? So I went down the hall and stuck my head in my supervisor's office, and I said to him, "You should call your brother in Manhattan, because I know his brother works in Manhattan." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I just heard on the radio that there's been a terrorist attack in New York City. A Planes have crashed into the World Trade Centers, both buildings." And I knew his brother only worked a couple blocks away from the World Trade Center. So he looked at me and goes, "Are you kidding?" And then I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he spent the rest of the day trying to reach his brother. All the phone lines were down for all the phone lines into the city were down. And eventually he did reach his brother later that evening, and his brother was just fine, though he was very close by everything that happened. So I went about the day, continuing to see patients, but quite distracted. And around 7 p.m., 6:30, 7 p.m., I was finished and I left the clinic. And I remember looking up the sky, and everything looked normal except for one subtle thing. There were no contrails. There were no contrails from aircraft anywhere, which is kind of unusual. And I went home and turned on the news, turned on CNN, and listened for updates on what was happening. I'd actually remember something else. I went home, ran home real quick at lunchtime to turn on the news and see what was going on. And it was a video of one of the World Trade Center towers collapsing. And I remember telling myself, "This is real. My gosh, this is for real." Because about 2 weeks earlier, I was watching some action movie, the one with Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck and the asteroid, and there was a meteor shower before the asteroid, and it hit New York City, and the top of the twin towers had been sheared off, and there was smoke and flame coming from it in this movie. And that scene, I've replayed that scene many times. It was so eerily prophetic of the events that occurred on 911. So uh, that evening, I remember watching a scene of federal marshals in an airport arresting suspected terrorists in the U.S. They were wearing body armor and helmets and had shotguns with stock magazines. That is, their extra shotgun shells were held in a magazine that was attached to the stocks. I remember that part just stood out to me for some reason. And I had this feeling like the world had moved through a doorway. The world had moved from one place to another. The world was not going to be the same after that, and it hasn't been in a lot of ways. The the terrorist attack the terrorist attack has had very far-reaching effects. The United States has just wrapped up what turned out to be a disastrous war in Afghanistan, the ongoing war on terror. There was a lot of conflict that we were involved with in Syria, engaging Al Qaeda. We were, prior to that, it was the Taliban and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan, and of course the 2003 invasion of Iraq, which remains controversial whether or not it was justifiable, whether or not it was warranted. But our country has changed a lot. We're more paranoid. One time I remember years ago reading in some photography travel book. In other words, a book about things to photograph when you're traveling, what to look for when you're in an unfamiliar setting. And I remember something about how the author was advising if you go to some unstable third world country, don't photograph bridges, dams, power plants, anything to do with police, military, or corrections, or government buildings, anything to do with infrastructure. Uh, don't photograph it, because I remember the wording was paranoid third world regimes may not appreciate photographers, photographing stuff like that. They're going to think they're going to think you're involved in espionage, that you're gathering intelligence. If you're living in some place with an unstable government, frequent coups d'etats, unfriendly neighbors that are massing tanks and troops at your border, yeah, in retrospect, I guess it's understandable you'd be kind of paranoid, but that could surely never happen in the United States, right? But I've seen examples of it. I remember going to one of the ferry landings to photograph the sunset at night, and one of the ferry captains was, really accosting and harassing me. And oh gosh, no, I'm not trying to sound like a victim, but I don't know how else to describe it. Uh, I was standing on a stone walkway, uh, pile of rocks. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, and looking at the lake. And she comes up to me and she goes very dramatically and with great hyperbole, "I hope you're not even thinking of going down there. That's private property." So, okay, you want to regulate my thoughts? I'm not allowed to think about going down there. And it's like I pretty much ignored her and started taking photos. And there's a old shack there that looked interesting. "Why are you taking pictures of that shack?" Another eye roll. And she goes, "We don't allow loitering here. I'm responsible for the security of this ferry landing, and you're doing a great job of it too, because let's put all the pieces together. I'm holding a camera. The sun is going down over the lake, and maybe I'm here to take photos of the sunset." But she wouldn't have it, and it was escalating where, you can't loiter here. If you don't leave, I'm gonna call the police. And it's just like, seriously, this is where we're at. I've had other instances of that happen since then. But terrorism is about social change or correction of some perceived injustice through violence, through a violent act, which is going to have much wider spread psychological impact, much wider spread ripple effects, which will produce change in the collective psyche of a populace, how they perceive themselves and their sense of safety, how they perceive others, how they perceive their nation. It can be designed to, the terrorist intention can be to diminish the confidence that a populace has in their government to protect them, or to create, orchestrate or design changes in the government to become more oppressive of civil rights. And I'm going to say that the Al Qaeda won a major strategic victory that day in terms of long term psychological impact. And a lot of you watching this who are, in your 20s or late teens or 20s, you may not know this because you didn't know the world pre 9/11. You traveling to Canada, if you were an American and you showed your driver's license, they pretty much wave you through, and same thing coming back. Post 9/11, very very different. I've had them get me out of the car and search my car. A lot of questions, detailed questions about who are you, what are you doing here, where are you going, why did you visit here, how long are you going to stay, do you have any weapons, are you carrying any weapons, how much cash are you carrying, or they don't ask that, are you carrying more than $10,000 worth of cash? My answer's been, don't I wish, not even close. But it's just we become more paranoid. Our sense of safety and trust has changed since 2001. And like I said, I don't know if a lot of the younger people watching this are even aware of that. So those are some of my thoughts on terrorism. And anything else? I guess not right now. So thanks for watching, and please hit subscribe. And I'm making this video with my laptop camera instead of my little Canon point and shoot. So where's the off button? Here we go. Okay, here we go. All right. Thanks for watching, and be safe. Signing off on 3, 2, 1.